She was probably like, what? Did you guys know each other from the government? It's weird, yeah. We have many common out. Yes. Yeah.
And that's fine. I don't.
I waited President Johnson, which is why to say that it had kind of important measures that severely experienced us today, and the president of the regarding the investigation of the shooting, of shooting setup, the people planning worry. So it was it's led by the District Attorney Sean McCormick, Chief County Investigator of the State Police Surveyor, Chief Barnes, Chief Persons, Lieutenant Barnes, and we were just also impressed with the investigation. Our officers responded, they showed their restraint. They only fired one shot. So it's really the fatal shot we believe was determined was by the civilian who was having a known crisis. So I think it's just that we will suicide. But it it was a tragedy for everybody. There's a lot of mental health issues in the community. And we owe the police a very gratitude. The individual sitting sat down with firearm. One of the things I don't know if it was in the paper, but he was an expert and he was familiar with weapons. And he was just saying trust me. So it did everybody's heartstrings. I particularly sympathize with that neighborhood. You're already talking about the preservation rate of one. Maybe any of the audience may know, where we're all is next to a Hazelwood farm that's owned by Triple Crown. They're proposing a 60,000 square foot warehouse and agricultural land. The people already, there's a legacy farm across the street. I just see that neighborhood is under stress that way. Yeah. But just so that how you handle the incident and the investigation. So even now, we did have an executive session prior to start this meeting, which is order meeting, to discuss the potential litigations, legal advice. We also interviewed two new police officers. It's a meeting greet. They're already hired. They're be a wonderful addition to the community as well. So we wanted to announce that and also that the meeting will be live streamed for those who wish to attend virtually. Recording of the meeting will also be available after for anyone who cannot join in real time. If you wish to speak, please state your name, address, and speak clearly into the microphone. So now we have resident recognition of visitors, which I believe is Libby, the Simpson Library.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. So yes, I'm Lucy. I'm from the Simpson Library. Director. I've been here twice. But I am here with the 2025 Insurance Board. You all have to come on me and for the, you know. This is some highlights in 2025. So I'm really jazzed about this. We have been getting over the not this year, that makes me really proud. Of course, the first thing sending it to the music foundation nurses. And dedication involved with the library. So thank you again for that, and just to kind of show you some expense precedent. Also specifically for the commissioners, I included a paper kind of breakdown of how we have used those funds to support Upper Island residents. So just for the benefit of the everybody else in the room, 23% of township residents have a library card. I think is a great number. I would love to see that 100%, but honestly it's 23. About a quarter of all of our checkouts were done. Back report, we had almost 600,000 checkouts last year. So a quarter of those were township residents. So your residents really getting a lot of use of the library. That accounts for 122,000 items. For your donation to the library, that comes out to about $4.40 per holder or $1 per resident. Just to put that in perspective, books now cost hardcover, new hardcover adult books, $25. And your resident is paying on average about 3 of those every year. So I think that's about 574 keeping taxpayer every year, so that's really great. And of course, you know, children books are about 10 to 20. And that's not including all the Wi-Fi, all of the computers, laptops, programming, ebooks, and streaming, and all the ones. So just one thing for and just kind of show you what we're really community and there are any questions on this or anything in the library. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Kids. Thank you so much.
I have neglected to do the consideration of approval of minutes for May 20th, 2026 meeting.
To approve.
Yes. Any comments, adjustments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. We can get back precedence recognition of visitors also allows anybody to speak on an item that's not on the agenda. Does anybody who wishes to speak? I understand no headings.
Sure, okay. I like. And,
I had a letter in the mail one day around 11 o'clock. I found out that might have been sent initially out in error, but it addressed me as a property owner and invited me to a focus group last night at 7 p.m. My business normally closes at 7, so I had to struggle and scramble to get customers to change those press. I understand all that being the city, and she acknowledged that the letter sent out an error, and I will say she was generally upset and extremely apologetic. I had no problems with her. She could have been more, I actually felt bad for her because I'm sure she knew I was irritated. And I understand mistakes happen, but my question was, if this was sent out by staff, were they scrambling again to meet unrealistic deadlines? The letter even stated, and I quote, due to the timing of the decision and the lead time necessary to get the referendum on the fall ballot, we are unfairly accelerating the timeline. Because on this day, and I quote again, I acknowledge that I'm providing very short notice. Apparently, it was done out an error and property owners were not together. And in other meetings, Mr. Kleinpeter and Mr. Cochran and others discussed, including I tried to. It just seems like we're rushing this process through, and it seems to fit that pattern again. The last meeting, I kind of got cut off, and I didn't get to say this. But after the May 20th Board of Commissioners meeting, I made a phone call to the Cumberland County Conservation District, and I talked to a gentleman named Nathan for probably 30 minutes, and just trying to get some background on some things. I know a little bit, but sometimes a little knowledge is dangerous. So, but multiple times through that 30 minutes, he said, it appears this is being rushed and these things take time. That's what I have. And again, knowledge and understand all for professionalism and the staff. I've never had a problem with staff. Over the years, different things, always, Mr. Well, all these people, they've just been super. That's
As you know, we're going to be talking about land preservation.
Pardon?
As you know, we're going to be talking about land preservation. Anybody else? I'll be on the agenda.
Mr. President, my name is down for public improvements, but I can speak now. What is your pleasure?
Protocol for public improvement.
Pardon?
I'm going to hold for public improvement.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Okay. Good on your hand. Chapman.
Question about the state park?
Sure.
About 34 Alice Avenue. Yesterday's Sentinel front page, column was headed Township Considered Referendum. Article by Joe Kress. And in the article, it said that, find it here. To help staff prepare the referendum, commissioners hired a consultant with the Consultants Natural Lands in Delaware County and Grove Conservation, York County, and Fairchild City. That's my question. I heard a rumor Monday that Natural Lands dropped out, was no longer consultant for you folks. The reason was they felt that they couldn't meet your timeline. So I'm wondering why it was listed in the newspaper, still being a consultant later, like that fact was known. And is that true? Maybe it's sources. I've heard that they dropped out, and they couldn't meet your time. Yeah, I mean, after those information.
Yeah, I think it's to be discussed when we get to that point in the agenda. All right, anyone else? Okay, we have consideration of the approval of staff reports. Should we take them together? Anybody wish to review the staff reports? Or not, so we have a manager's consolidated staff report, fire department report, police department report, EMS report, recreation department report, engineers report, finance department report.
Move for approval.
I did have a question. I didn't share this ahead of time. It looked like our revenue collection went down the most recent month. I was just, make that observation. Item seven, I mean, we are keeping track of all of our fund balances monthly. And then we have a sheet as to where we were last year, which I find that very helpful. But there's like the revenues that were not even this year than in prior years. I didn't know if you had a comment about that, Bill, or have the same observation.
I have a comment at this time. Into that. Gender.
Just, I would point out the electrical bill, $7,682. We're about to throw the switch on our solar project. Looking forward to see, just have that number change.
Sounds like we should include the bills to the reports. Okay, look at it. All of them, let's just do the standard staff reports.
Motion to approve staff reports and.
Second.
All this in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the reports are approved. Now we can talk about the bills.
Chairman, I remove that we approve the bills suggested in the amount of $152,060.69.
Second.
And Phil, we first heard about the project.
Okay.
If you wish to take it.
The electrical bill was $782.50. We're getting ready to throw the switch on the solar panels. Looking forward to seeing those changes going forward.
You're going to see what we're voted, it's a test. But we're very close to that. So we pass, we're all this favor. Okay, bills are approved. Next, we have Public Safety Committee, would be Police Chief Parsons.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would like to talk a little bit about the incident on Sunday. I appreciate the board coming to the press conference that was hosted here at the station by District Attorney Sean McCormack. I listened carefully to that. And I heard his lawyer explain that our police officers justified their use of deadly force in that incident. This was a Sunday morning in a nice established neighborhood in Upper Allen Township, where a person who was firing a weapon out from its home. When our officer arrived on scene, he was met with gunfire. To see one of our patrol cars with a bullet hole and a dent in the hood from being shot at and struck by a bullet, something I never thought I'd see. But in fact, that was the case. These officers did exactly what they were trained to do. These senseless acts of violence, such as active shooters, were trained to respond immediately to the scene, to identify the threat, and take whatever force is necessary to neutralize that threat. And that's exactly what these officers did. I could be more proud of what they did that morning. Community should know that when incidents like this happen, everybody, all law enforcement agencies are coming. When I arrived on scene, after getting called on my phone from home, I think I saw every police department on the West Shore represented. So the community should know that the law enforcement agencies are trained on exactly how to handle these situations, and everyone will be coming. So one thing that stuck out with this was when our officer arrived on scene and began to take gunfire. Just prior to that, he saw a citizen walking in the neighborhood. And in a situation where complete focus has to be on the threat and himself, he had the presence of mind to tell that citizen to get back. So that's our objective. Thinking about others when you need to think about yourself. So that concludes my remarks. I'd like to thank the fire police who shut down Weber Croft at
our second busiest road, South Market, for a long time on a hot day. I'd like to thank the State Health Lifeline EMS who were there. The state police did an independent investigation. They were immensely helpful. And all the agencies that helped that day. I know the fire department was on standby. And this was an incident that, of course, we'll never forget. But thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. Howard.
Yes, for the month of May, we had 74 incidents. The average personnel was 6.41, which is up from last month. Our stipend program is working well. Currently, we're at 49.9% of the budget for it. We're about halfway through the year, so it's probably a good number to go with. Last night, we conducted training with Mechanicsburg Fire Department, and I will have extra staff on tomorrow for Jubilee Day. So part of that is you won't be able to rely on Mechanicsburg to come out and walk around, or if there's an issue with Jubilee Day, we're ready to go in there as well. So that's part of work.
Thank you. Next, we have planning and zoning committee consideration action on amendment to the 2020 additions of for the preliminary financial plan development plan for a building or lot extension at 2110 F. Better known as Jerry Dixon's. Upper Allen Township 102-3-11-01 to permit an extension of time for the applicant to complete conditions and report the plan. Labor community or development speakers to the decision.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to introduce the project and the request before you and just give a little bit of background. On November 20th, 2024, the board did approve this project with conditions. And since that time, the applicant has been working to address those items. However, the timeline that was set in the conditions of approval has now passed. And they're before you this evening requesting consideration of a 6-month time extension to November 26th, 2026. As a reminder, this was for an expansion of the building there and an addition of the parking lot for the existing business. And the applicant is here who can add additional comments. You'll see in the staff report the recommended motion and a potential added condition as well, which is a separate motion.
Right, my name is Adam. James Lawrence. As a very stack force. This federal is because through our request for the 6-month extension. Solution that in 24 addition for residents who find as a solution. Part of the themselves is why we decided that I wasn't very fun. US keeping up with them with that issue. All their game instructions. Because they have functional biology, issues, wants issues.
My really pleasant is, it's been some time, so we're gradually very extension, which I understand, but it's 6 months now. Make sure you allow enough time that you're not back in 5 months saying, I'm gonna need 3 more. So it's better to ask for a longer time. You need to check.
Yeah, that was good, or a good suggestion. So at this point, we feel that we know what technical issues with the plan, and now we're going to agreements which have been drafted. Looking through the conditions of approval, there's paying the fees, signatures on the plan, things of that nature. So it's one of the items is an additional condition of $1,000 which we're going with that. That's.
Amendment to condition 12. And, condition number 12 of the November 20th, 2024 conditions of approval is outlined on the November 21st, 2024 action letter for the plan for building and parking lots 20 and Aspen Drive. Township file 23 one's permanent 12% time 26 26.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh,
Jim, you approved, requiring the applicant to pay $1,000 for staff and solicitor, assuming completing with this amendment. Escrow account. Increase.
That only approved committee. I think you want to speak, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Williams, for another 17 hours. That's here, 334. Public improvements, you had a meeting yesterday morning, did you notice on the agenda you're reading that generation spark was on there? I did read Mr. Fairchild, your email detailing your preferences, your thoughts on it, and
Not necessarily, but
okay.
recap.
I have a couple things to say about that. First of all, for Generation Spark, thank you for generally supporting finishing the trails up there. You know, I was out there again today, seeing people in the heat. I think the backside of that park will be another great treasure. But, some things on the email concerned me a little bit. I think you, Mr. Walsh, from the time this project came out, next, when they did the ACORN exercise, I want the public to know we have two commissioners. Exactly what that is. People were invited in 2 evenings, to choose either 2 evenings or one during the day to come in, and they were given 3 acorns to place in jars based on what they felt should be at the park in terms of amenities. It's called value voting, which planning people are very familiar with. It's been around for decades. I've done it. I've had kids use stickers on flip charts, used whiteboard with check marks. I used it then say to Silver Spring Township to prioritize park frontage. So it's been around for a while. It's invaluable. You only had 321 people. Some of them are children, and their input is just as valuable, believe me. But those are people that were interested and engaged in this park. They knew about it. Yes, it's less than 1% of the population, but their input was valuable. My point is, it is not, shouldn't be the sole criteria for what the public thinks. Let me explain that. Prior to the Acorn exercise. And it's been announced, various departments here in the township were queried, along with all of the sports teams with thousands of participants and parents, and what did they need? Most of what sports fields wasn't going to happen. But you also have the input of the recreation department. And that director, Doug, has been in this community, grown this community. We agreed, along with my wife, that the people that expressed an interest in an amphitheater, you just do two pieces. The amphitheater, as you described it, and maybe you're connected to it, is a stone amphitheater. I sent a very long, laborious memo to the Department of Rec Board, my views on Generation Park, and a photograph of what Chambersburg did. You can construct an amphitheater, whatever size you want. It's 90% grass, surrounded by stone, using existing topography. Don't just shut the door. There's been input when we had the ribbon cutting to open this park, get the public in there. And Eric, you were one pushing for that. There was discussion at the table that was where the amphitheater was going to be. And one of the park and rec board members kind of took a little informal poll. And 64 people weren't sure, were against it, and 63 were for it. It's not a venue just for that. All that can be discussed later. The presentations we've had here, that we've had a limited number of people allowed by fire in the room for the animals and the talks we've had. Some of this would be done outdoors. Well, that would be the amphitheater. I shared that information, and I guess I don't want to stereotype what people think an amphitheater is. I understand not being comfortable with a skate park. Eric, you gave the statement that there's one being built in the borough. Well, there is, but that's the state's spot. If you look at the schematics of the skate parks, it's a very small, limited area, and doesn't meet the need of the 9% people that came here and probably cast all three of their acres. You could do 1, 2, or 3 acres, so you could wait your thing. That's one of the values of that system. I've written my comments in that long email.
Jeff, I didn't get a copy of that report. You should share that.
Did you check your,
That's.
I ended up in spam.
Right.
I don't.
Anybody get it? Because I'm just saying you're gonna write something.
I sent it to the park and rec board, and I didn't, I will send it again. And at that point, I totally lost my train of thought. I want to thank you for your continued support, but I understand what you would feel to come.
No, it wasn't.
My minor biological science. It is a gorgeous park. There's room for other things there. It was purchased by the former board for street movement space, Raynor. Again, Eric, as you said, close to the NRPA National Lake Park Association. The tested standard of 10 acres per 1,000 people, which we've restored on and almost have been. And I just, it's a plot map. It's right now, towns that didn't buy that land, there'd be a development in there. I think the farming road is a little bit in that. The egress they require out of the back, that's not.
To clarify, we should do one. It was before the brand production season in 2 months. There was really that public agreement with the engineer. We were just trying to rationalize the design, what the next move should be, and we're getting into support to complete the trail next year. And it was.
I read the memo that worked me off. When it comes to this, it's my last job.
Well, you. But we did learn, like, where's the sewer coming from, where's the water coming from, the cost, we did that on some of those details. One thing I wanted to point through, was trying to recapture, the transaction and all that, was actually 230 people participated in that aspect of the session. It shows how difficult it is to get all the input.
And this is why I took 3 directors, one from Pennsylvania, one from Massachusetts, one from Texas. We went through there and I got their input. And I had Deputy Director of National Park Service, retired, on our deck talking, Carmen and I were after him, talking about our parks. As you can see, Fisher Park from our deck, but I talked about generations. What does the National Park Service do for their amphitheaters? All different states. So, that's just information we try to pass along and share. And I know it's going to be down the line. I don't know if we'll be on the board.
Just one quick question while you're here. When I went back through the exercise looking at it, we did the public input, we had all the percentages, so what feature, most of all the trails.
Okay.
And make sure we're looking on it.
That's national.
So when you go back to the organization work, they called the party, there was never any project that's related to the restaurants. Do you recall anything? I don't suggest we look at that for a bird count, a meeting place, and have a demonstration.
I think you're going to have a lot of fun just looking at that barn. I would say be careful of the focus on it. You got a dry farm, and I guess farm based, very good for events. You have more on scale.
This is also like a barn, and they just call it restaurant, and they never identified any further. Or very big restaurant.
Party.
Yeah.
The barn is very good, so you've got a lot of options. But I thank you for your time. Folks, I thank you for your time. It's important things tonight. Sure.
So next we have community development of the schedule revision resolution. You're going to speak to that, Michelle?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Thank you. Can you hear me? So Michael has, you have several attachments with the staff memo. You have the fee schedule with a red line, and Mike has, it's on page 5 and page 6. It's just some minor changes. And then the next item that you have in your packet is the resolution, should you choose to approve. But in summary, in December of 25 was the last update to the fee schedule. And since that time, it's been noticed that we've had ongoing situations where we've been having to go back in terms of our escrow accounts for our developers related to inspections, as well as just the administrative fund for plan review and so forth. Our finance department has been going back and needing to contact the developers to replenish the funds quite often. And one of the things that we're offering for your consideration, and you can see this for the escrow administration account, the initial fee in the past was $2,000, and we're offering that you consider increasing that to $5,000 per escrow account. And then there's a requirement currently for a $1,000 minimum balance, and that's been challenging to keep that minimum. So it's been a constant, and we're offering for consideration $3,000, raising that minimum to maintain that balance. Oh, thank you. And then on page 6, something similar is, we can page down. At the bottom of page 6, it's similar in the site improvements inspection section of the fee schedule. Currently, we have a standard amount that's based on an engineering analysis for based on construction, but we're, instead of maintaining a $1,000 minimum as well, we'd like to ask for the $3,000 minimum, just to stop all that. And the attached resolution is a standard resolution that, should you choose to make these changes, would make that happen with the attachment.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Paving waiver, that it is.
We are currently working with the company, as part of our 2026 roadway improvement project. Part of the project requires installation of a new cross culvert to the city of 31 Drive. In our assessment, the water main is the conflict of the pipe. The water company has decided to replace that portion of pipe extension within the drive. Our company is calling for reconstruction of it entirely. So starting in we will work along the Asian phase to be reconstructed that way.
I move to waive 217-7 township engineers proposed requirements as allowed under 270 -7 G.
All those in favor? So next we have land preservation update. The authorization is scheduled to advertise public to June 22nd. Nobody has a member, that's the May 1st.
We have the land preservation update. The consultant from Brookline Division began conducting focus groups yesterday, and the last one is scheduled. These sections will provide an additional layer of quality feedback for the commissioners, coupled with public comments shared at the VOC meetings. The consultants of natural lands have decided that based on the to provide the scope of work they propose providing in preparation for the referendum. Take a step back from the project at this time. To wrap the work they already completed, they shared the draft today, which the township will review and share coming board of commissioner meeting for discussion, and then receive further comment from the public.
I would say. It could be considered breach of contract, what's happened. Yeah, nonetheless, I think they're people that are knowledgeable. We wanted a lot of their material. Pittsburgh, I think we were at the support. They were offering a conservation opportunities now, which is very important. And evaluating analysis there on income tax, who pays and what's amount they pay and so forth. And I believe, they're going to complete that part of it. We have it in draft form. There's a pointed attention in the executive session about will they honor it, or will they come to the public forum to present that? And we had a discussion, well, should we still have the public forum? Just receive that information. Maybe we will, delay the referendum until the spring or whatever. But we think now is the time to hear their information, and it's also an opportunity for the public to question it. And we wanted to include people like Stephanie Williams at the county. We just received a letter from the county today that they're very supportive of our efforts toward the referendum. So it's a bit of a quandary in that legal matter proceeded with the consultants, while maintaining good faith. Whole thing, as Mr. Brennan shared the letter, I wouldn't blame the staff. It's as much the consultants organizing these focus groups, and they did not want board members present at those meetings. So I don't know how, we have a report, I don't know how it was presented. I see Mr. Community in the back. I know he attended, maybe he can go listen. So we're at a loss for some information ourselves as a board. So then they had expressed concern all along about our timeline to get this signed a contract. And then, if they don't believe we can meet the timeline, well, first of all, I should add, our solicitor still believes we can meet the timeline. But correct, Josh, can you address that?
Well, there's no legal intent being timeline.
Correct, we worked backwards from that. Public forum on the 22nd, public meeting on the 1st, July 15th, and then rescheduled the August 3rd, August 5th meeting actually, July 29th, if we would comply with the timeline. And I asked the folks from Silver Spring Township, here tonight, they did Steve Lebo, Frank Belmont, also a man on the County Planning Commission, Ed Rankin. Silver Spring did their project very differently. They didn't use teams. They didn't have these things. My own personal opinion is those group, we should both want to hear from our voters. You know, we just had, I'm glad we have brought on that, but it's a public input session in a way, it's just very hard to get public input. And I just say in the interest of transparency, we should still go forward with the June 22nd meeting and go there with other comments.
My understanding is that if we do that, we wouldn't necessarily provide for a specific election date. That would still be useful to get this information and engage the community on this, but not tied to the fall election.
And I want to echo what you said, Commissioner Walsh, in that, I think we suggested that our solicitor contact the contractor, Natural Lands, and see whether or not they would be willing to present the information they've done to date as part of their initial contract at a meeting, and that possibly could happen on June 22nd. And I think that would be, I'd like to hear what they've done. I think that what gave me pause was trying to tie it to a specific election, because I think if we're going to do this, we should get as much input from the public and from various advisory boards and interest groups as possible, because it's a very important and lasting kind of exercise, because we're talking about putting land in conservation or non-development for perpetuity. That's a long time. So I think we want to do it carefully with as much input and participation as we can. And so I'm supportive of moving forward, so long as we don't rush it and be open-minded to take our time. And whenever the appropriate time is to have the voters inform us then of what their wishes are, that's great. But let's not tie the forum, as we suggest, Phil, or the information set to a specific ballot date. If we're doing that, I'm supportive.
Sure, and it's not heard of the possibility that the results may come back with it is possible. My point is that we don't specifically tie that date to this motion. With the possibility that we could, but it's let's move forward with the meeting and get the information.
I'm really conscious of the state going out, what would the work burden be on our staff? Since we're doing our comprehensive plan, working on the budget, and this more responsibility or more, just more. I guess we have to prioritize what will be our most important project or joint when we're moving on that.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's important that the public knows, we said it before, but we are in the process of finding out with Michelle and our police staff. We're going to be undergoing a rewrite of the comprehensive plan, which is by definition a citizen participatory process, and we want to get input from as many groups and neighborhoods and citizens as we possibly can. So what better time to talk about the importance of agriculture, the preservation of open space, when we're talking about the comprehensive plan and what we want this township to look like in the next 10, 20, 50 years. So I think the time to address this issue is now, but I think we need to be deliberate and rational and not be wed to a specific date, but let's let the process really play out, become involved. So I agree, Karen, thanks for mentioning the comprehensive plan.
So you think pushing it to the 22nd, we have the capacity to have the information prepared to have it facilitate public at that time.
Wow. Yeah, I think that one of the main goals of that is that would be to receive the information from our consultant. That is, if in fact we're successful in having them come, or they're willing to come and present it, because even though they broke their contract, they have done some work, and I'd like to see that work. I think the public should be able to see that work. That doesn't dictate a time frame or a sequence of steps. It just more information that we'll have as a part of it.
Do you think you can get them scheduled by for Monday? They may not be available.
Well, they know about June 22nd meeting, probably, so they're still on for 6 weeks. They sign a contract, exactly identify all the meetings, meetings all together. So if they want to depart, yeah, fine, let's take the word for it, it doesn't want to collect everything. So that, I believe they owe us that. That answers your question? Yeah, I mean, they definitely do give out dates.
Don't know if we call and say, hey, when you, if they're gonna be available to come on Monday. If they aren't available, who's facilitating that?
I think you're available because they agree to it, just reaching contract, and also filing their reputation and leaving our community.
Karen, I hear you suggesting that perhaps we could, if we choose to take action, we could take action to schedule a public forum on June 22nd, subject to the
Okay.
that would be one way of assuring hearing. If they aren't, then then we would work hard to try to find a date that they can.
I can live with that.
But you can stick with the content. I don't like giving them that left. But I mean,
Well, I
I
think
mean, given the situation we're in, it seems unnecessarily gracious to.
well, I did understand my unspoken nuance. I would be shocked and disappointed if they wouldn't show up.
That exact.
But I think that's something that we agreed the solicitor would be the point person with that. So,
And it's just something that this should not have been a surprise to natural lands. When we voted on this, I recommended that we put a provision in the contract of times of the essence. We relayed that concern, we amended the contract so that they understood that this was time sensitive work. So it is disappointing that they are not honoring the obligation that we made very clear to them what our expectations were.
so what would be your recommendation, Josh, in terms of if we were to authorize this motion, that we would just schedule a meeting and have it, and independent of whether or not they show up?
Well, that would, if you schedule the meeting tonight, I would reach out to them tomorrow and try to convince them to come to the meeting. If they won't come to the meeting, then we'll have to look at other legal remedies, but that was my recommendation.
Or they could come back and offer another date. If they couldn't meet that date.
I don't know why I keep going.
Yeah, I think we're subject to it to build it.
Okay.
Okay, hold it. I was gonna hear from the public on that. So we, like I mentioned earlier, we had former county commissioner Steve Oliver here, and Frank Elmont, and Ed Franco, County Planning Commission.
What are they gonna do?
Yeah, they give us the other side, so great help with them. They have very successful programs.
And, earlier just to answer your questions, how I get what it is, Spring Township, a little background about myself. And having to say, very happy, retired. I am currently though a member of the Silver Spring Township Land Preservation Review Board with the, here also is Frank Elmont, who's the chairman of that board. As I'm listening to the comments and conversations tonight, I just want to tell you how things went in Silver Spring Township. There was too much development, in my opinion. That's why I ran for township supervisor. And a board that, in my opinion, had different interests of what were the true interests of the people of the township. I did some research and found a piece of legislation known as Pennsylvania Act 153 of 1996 that permits municipalities to create their own land preservation program. Separate, they have to be paid for by either income tax, property tax, debt issuance, bond obligations. So, so I did more research. I approached the board of supervisors, which I was at that time, and said, what do you guys think about this? They were all fully supportive of it. So, word spread, and the group formed called Preserve Silver Spring. And they really did, someone had mentioned something here, our state would be having a lot of different stuff. Our state did this group of people, Preserve Silver Spring, really did the research. They even put together a draft of the recommended language, which the township and solicitor reviewed and approved. And Preserve Silver Spring Group, which was a political action committee that chairman, treasurer, requested in a letter to the board of supervisors in June of 2013. Please consider putting this program on ballot. The board of supervisors did approve that, and it's in the November 2013 ballot. It sounds like around a similar timeline as Silver Spring was. We did not use a consultant. We did hire a couple of conservancies after the fact after everything was approved that helped us write the conservation easements. Our program has done very well. We did not do focus groups. What we did, we had an enormous amount of workshops at our local fire companies, made sure we educated the people during the time that ballot ordinance and referendum went through the question to be on the ballot. And the education campaign was about 3 months. The thing about these conservation easements, this land preservation program, not established the style of development, but established to give landowners another option what they put their land in. We had some opposition, not a local opposition, but the Greater Harrisburg Association of Realtors
did like an estimate smear campaign for our effort when it didn't work, prepared for it. The referendum, in my opinion, is probably the easiest part of this effort. Okay? And by putting your referendum on the ballot, you're simply asking the voters of the township, hey, will you be interested? Will you approve raising some type of funding, whether it be EIT, property tax, or the bond creation? Silver Spring Township, we did EIT 1%. And it's stated simply, would you approve the establishment of this piece of tax to go towards conservation easements or county to purchase some land for conservation? It doesn't have to be farmland, it can be wetlands, it can be many things that are in the Act 153, it's very specific. As far as your planning goes, delay it, that's going to be your decision. I don't tell you my opinion. I think the timing is right. I think the general election, you're going to track with the primary election. And as we all know, development continues to creep in-laws, like this development. But like I said, this program will give the landowner an additional option if it is a plan. And by approving a referendum for executive voters, meaning that you're giving the residents here, voters, an opportunity to decide something that I know would be a good thing for your township. And that's not for me to decide, that's what the voters do. But giving a referendum, which is very simple, for them to yay or nay, let the people who support it, the people who are against it, let them go ahead. Let them present the facts, let them prove what they want to prove that they approve of it or don't approve of it. So I think it's a win-win situation. The Silver Spring, we use 1/10 and 1%, which is earned income. Does not affect the people who are on Social Security, retirement, pensions, annuities. One of the things that was used as a scare tactic was that the hourly are going to have to pay more taxes, which is just a total BS. Give you some other information. The county did support us. And we're just really didn't do that much. It was the developers who preserved Silver Spring did the campaigning, the door-to-door workshops. And we have so far preserved nearly 1,400 acres. We have a good bit more in the pipeline. And I hope this has helped you and understand what we're doing, how we did it, and frankly,
Not too much.
So, I don't know much for a lot of things that will be.
So you preserve 14 acres, you said, and did you buy them outright, or did they accept some kind of?
These were purchased via conservation easement, so the owner of the land sold it.
And it's been still land, you just bought them.
Development rights for it.
And were they under any other kind of easements, like planted green kind of things? Well, instead of waiting to keep farm.
Preserving properties entirely through conservation. Do it.
I can't tell you a percentage, but many folks in 23 folks. Many of them are in the Clean Green program and they remain in that development taxes. And to And one other thing, Vince touched on, but I just want to say, you need a group dedicated folks. As Vince alluded to. Do it going on. I was part of it. And we were out there almost every evening, we were out there on the weekend. We focused on the super, what's called the super. Folks that are known to regularly and routinely vote. And I mean, the folks, myself and the other folks that were doing this, we were really starting this program in a lot of us. We wanted to get off our time and be out there and knocking on doors and interacting with members of the community. And one thing I can tell you, even folks that probably didn't go to sport up, I can even say 85% of the doors we knock, we're sticking it to development. There's 2 months to develop. You heard it, no. I don't know the reasons for some folks to be against it, except there are a few that I don't care what it's for, you're not raising my taxes for anything, period. Trying to think of anything else. But the big stuff for this, but it's not so much what you do now. We do have 7 current applicants who are in various stages of going through the preservation process right now. So we're continuing to have success and forward. I also would like to say, let's just say you get this on the ballot and it's approved. You would create then a board, we have this, right, to be the ones that identify properties that would get preserved, interact with landowners, accept applications, so forth. So there's really, again, Vince touched on the initial effort that the township staff is not much involved. Same is true for the board. Basically, the only thing that the township, that we have a supervisor that's a liaison for our workers. And we get financial reports from the township financial person. And this is really a big deal. I provide an agenda every month for our meetings and the township. Admin puts it out on our website. That's not, straining or whatever we call it. It's not the township staff.
How large was your organizing when you went out to Canada residents? How many months?
I believe 10 or 12 people.
Yeah, I was going to say a dozen thereabouts.
And these people, we were the ones that did the workshops. Our key thing was educating the public about these programs because there was so much misinformation. Some naysayers saying sort of. And one thing to be very clear too, the program is 100% voluntary. You don't go out to see people's program. We educate them. Then send out information to large landowners, some which bring to townships, some were interested, some weren't. What's funny is those who initially weren't later on became very interested. And
We also did have a few, after having the program started, we also had a few sign-ups and letters and so forth, as Rich said, just property management that had offered them from the township, and members of the board, building a preservation board that were there to be able to talk to them, be able, hey, we're interested in preserving the property, here's how you come and talk to us. You know, right here, find out information. One other thing I want to add, that's very important, you probably say this, because our program has been active for over 10 years. We still have people in our township think the landowner is not going to own the property if they preserve it. So stress that all you can. The landowner, they can sell it anytime they want.
Is it, how long is it in reserve?
Right.
And if they want to get out of it,
In the most technical sense, it could happen. But one of the things that we did in Silver Spring, that made some places, the law that Bruce mentioned does allow the township itself to be the primary key. See, you don't have to land trust. But thinking Silver Springs, township supervisors and your case commissioners are open, saying, maybe you get a group of supervisors that say that are not competing for no reason, for a reason. Maybe a landowner can come, or they could even decide, you know what, that property is, that's third, we could use it. If by having the land trust being the primary, now you have them. They would have to also agree to undo the preservation. And on top of that, then the public vote. Do you agree to take this property out of preservation? So it's not totally, completely possible. It's
I know those sort of things. People are happy with property preservation.
I guess what I'm going to say next really has nothing to do with your process. But one of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed and found really rewarding is property that would be, are usually really awesome. And in many cases, property, it's their third, fourth generation property, or farm it, or whatever it is. I can't tell you how many properties. I mean, it would kill me to know that my property would become something like that. It's amazing how much some of the property is around.
I was going to ask you about the Virgin Road transaction. I think that received national attention. That would be really explain it, but that also relates to that. That's not, you know, the urgency around that issue.
They asked, they constantly, you could tell us, they constantly, that is the walk, you know, trying to do this, to come up together. One of the,
If you're, how about they might fall the baby of the not like that one, it's a very long time. That's going to help me finish a long time. Or put his mother in the bar.
yeah,
This is whole family. And they're in it. Well, it's about city, you know. The one, permanent. 7,200.
That's a-
And then with the alternate county program, how's that, what's the county program? So it's random, right?
You did not. But you mentioned that, the municipal land revenue programs, we follow that things, like stamp, or county, all the state, all the agriculture. And we have had farms that they have, county, we have, so that's the county. That's just. It's not all.
What's nice when you do pair with the county is a lot of the public administrative costs, like getting appraisal, surveys, deed searches, stuff like title search, that stuff. County pays. Instead of, tax to come out of your account. Basically, all we pay is whatever Florida easement value they'll work out, 50, 50, or 60. But, one other thing too, county easements are way less flexible than the easements in working with like natural land or legacy farmland trust. I mean, they sit down, property. And I remember somebody from their organization, a couple of us from the land preservation board, and the property. So we sit down together. And they go through with the property of how they want, or where they want restrictions. Then we have the 3 levels of protection. Kind of like through where there's they call it low protection, swing protection, each level, 3 more restricted, 2, one that, 4, 5, 14, 5. They don't just want it, so these 4 areas, they're gonna do this, these 6 things, that. Probably go for one.
Thank you very much. Thank you, folks.
Can we ask questions of Steve?
Sure.
So then, you might talk about this stuff too. If I knew you were coming to that one, because we might put you like, I'm sorry. So, Liz and I talked about this for about 2 years ago. And I said, if I knew you would be here tonight, I bought my notes, but it wasn't on the agenda to anything, so I didn't have to do that. But you started this in 2013. And what was one of the bill work at, you remember?
Well,
Or one template, I'm sorry.
the state here. And multiply it by.
I'm interested in what the girls was. Well, do you remember when Silver Springs, what the revenue that you generated?
Oh, yeah, right, back then it's probably $300,000, now it's per year, and now it's, what is it now?
I'm not sure. Are you asking what total EIT
Yes,
is they
what it generated annually.
for the land preservation?
And 900,000.
Yeah.
And you said 2 years ago that you're having trouble spending.
No, it's only two big easements.
Yeah, that $1 million. So, the private land preservation, is that 1,500 acres? Or is that total land, agricultural and scenic?
That's all the land that is, which does not have to be agricultural, it's and wildlife, the act and recreation it's one of the conservation.
So what's your largest non-agricultural?
Look at that.
Rod and Gun Club for 150 acres?
Yeah.
So taxpayers putting private control position, basically.
Sure.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure.
I mean, everybody's in this.
Okay, and it doesn't grant, none of this grants any public citizen the right to use that land. The land, as you said, remains private. So we take public dollars, give to private people, maintain their population.
I can probably, I could for your house.
Sorry, you didn't. So that's what I'm saying. So we're taking tax dollars, paying private individuals for them to enjoy the property in the public.
Probably, and
You can live on your property.
you don't have to have one.
So you don't think the public benefits from not having a warehouse or data center? When I live in, you know,
0.1% from us, about $710,000. And over 5 years, that's $3.5 billion. We could buy an apartment and have the whole building. have access to. And we're trying. So that's one of the things that you're. I don't have to endorse that, so it's for secure. About
This is a voluntary program.
that's not a voluntary program for tax rate.
Yes, it needs to say that. Yes.
So can you speak in the microphone? Sorry.
Yeah.
Talk here.
Yeah, it's, the people, the voters, of the township,
1% said yes, 49% paid plans.
this is for people who are fat, currently, all right, Jim, you make $100,000 a year, you know how much you pay for the phone.
I'm not worried about those folks. I'm worried about the people who are making minimum wage.
I work part-time, guys, retired, it'd be like 12,000 a year. Here I would have to pay.
And you have that source of income for retirement. This on tax. I just want to make sure these facts are known.
It's very obvious. Very obvious.
Bring up that. Bring up that. We'll open it up. The floor perhaps. Okay, you can share information, that spreadsheet about an analysis of Silver Spring, and you had who held.
That's not the big list.
Okay, but what I can figure out now.
Recording in progress.
Like I'm like legacy, maybe Great Use County 15 years ago. I like everything red.
Well, the city cannot be part of the county program. The county program is strictly agricultural. So, and I have no problem supporting agriculture. I endorse it.
It is your.
It will explore conservation, and same thing, frankly, are. Most parties live from agriculture.
If you ate,
Yeah, I think it was. No.
we are not. Yeah. We're talking about maybe somebody in the story. Maybe one year we bet. Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Each municipality can pick up.
Speaking in one time.
Yeah, I know.
Any other questions?
Thank you, guys.
And it could be your head, give it a little more finality, especially calculating questions.
Stephanie Williams, the Director of Land Partnership Program, sent a letter. Could you bring that up on the board report?
I don't,
Should be an email to all the supervisors, all these there.
We all got it. After,
Because I'm primarily going to use that as the reference, so rather than me read it, we can all read it together.
I'm not sure that staff has that letter. Caldine, do you know? He's asked that we bring it on the board. If you could send it to Michael.
Oh, let me tell you what I first. I figure it's not really a system where there's a whole thing. I've been very involved with farmland restoration in this county. So unfortunately, Stephanie Williams, who's the director of the Farmland Preservation Program and the Open Space Program, was not able to be here, but she did write a letter and highlighted some things, so I just thought I would come along and kind of give you a chance to ask questions about that. Thank you very much. But again, to tell you a little bit about me, I am not an Upper Elton Township. I'm about as far away from Upper Elton Township as we get. I'm a township resident. We have 1,000 residents in the township. We're pretty much what's called. They support what they do. 10 years ago, I donated the development rights to my farm to the county of because they felt very strongly about farm preservation. One of our distinguished commissioners here, Washington, and he can tell you that a year ago, the county cut $100,000 from our preservation program by one before them, and said that I'd like to raise private funds to make up that $100,000 deficit. And the reason I did that, for every dollar that the county commits from their general fund, they receive about $2.50 from state funding to preserve one. So it's a real kind of bonus that I felt very strongly about. Unfortunately, we weren't able to raise $100,000, but we did raise $57,000 from quite a few donors. And very thankfully, the commissioners reinstated that $100,000 so that the county commissioners paid $850,000 from their general fund and committed to farmland preservation. That almost triples every year to actually make that much more money in this one. Another thing I would say, I just applaud you for considering this. I've known this for a long time. Silver Spring was one of the very few townships that took the risk politically to actually try to implement this program. It's been talked about a lot. It's a very crucial way of filling some of the voids between the farmland preservation program and other natural areas that are high priority ecological areas. So if you ask about clean green is simply preferential tax treatment approach. There's three elements that go into farm preservation. So there's most people to be a clean green event and one today. To be part of building you have to be state money. That program limits $36 you have to have 40 acres, and you have to be an active use. That limits you very much. There is the real benefit of this program. They can choose to develop their choose to preserve a heading piece on Yellow Bridges, which is in a farm, not in agriculture, but it's a high priority in terms of environmental protection. So in many ways, the county comprehensive plan, which was redone in 2024, focused a great deal on this partnership between county programs and municipal programs to fill some of those voids. The county is very strong in terms of its preservation efforts, farmland in particular, because of its state monies. They're working in many ways to protect the natural areas as well. It's not as available. And what I've seen in terms of Silver Spring is just kind of a perfect marriage, if you will, that the local Silver Spring Township can decide with their residents which property really, really desirable and environmentally sensitive. And they can use, if it's appropriate, county farmland funding or not. And it really fills the void. So, Stephanie's letter, just to review it, right? As I said, in 2024, in December, the county approved a new comprehensive plan, which by law is required about every 7 to 10 years. So that was a very comprehensive process. I served on the Land Protection Committee. It took us probably almost 3 years to complete towards the comprehensive plan. But it really emphasized these characteristics, if you will, so I look forward to by reading this. But open space, we did a lot of surveying countywide citizens. And one thing that kept coming up over and over and over again was increasing recreation. And even at the township level, fix the roads, clean the snow off, and preserve the land, the open space. You know, because most people feel they moved into Cumberland County because they value the quality of life. Part of that is open space and green space. So there's pretty compelling evidence, if you will, that throughout the county, there is a very high priority put on this. It takes some political will, frankly, to actually put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and actually implement some things. So I'm not really here to speak on behalf of the county or the county program. I can probably answer some questions about the county preservation program, farmland preservation program, but I think Vince and Frank are in much better position to talk about the township level, the issues of taxation, et cetera.
I know the planning commission, you also deal a lot with county, it's been suggested that county is going to pay us or whatever. I see that as not a weekly link.
Yes.
And even like the comprehensive plan, that's going to help us. There's a lot of wild language in the comprehensive plan. They're really not that important. And in our case, if we intervene in the challenge, like we need small business, like our attorneys, now it doesn't mean what it appears to mean. And then we also have the zoning hearing board that makes different interpretations of contractors, or short machinery. And it's very frustrating. But again, it's having a different function for the land. But mainly, you support the assessment that zoning is.
Correct. So for those, you know, in our 22 townships in Cumberland County, only 2 of them do not have zoning at all. Now, if you go back 25 years, there were probably 15 or 20 that did not have zoning. But now almost all do. And while it's an important tool in terms of determining in your community where things are going to be developed for the benefit of public health and safety of its citizens, it unfortunately can change. And it can change with each new election commission. Right? You could change your zoning every 3 years, every 5 years, whatever. And to some extent, you need to do that, and things change. But it is not, zoning something agricultural, for instance, does not necessarily mean it's going to stay in agriculture. Having your land clean and green is
me is going to stay in agriculture. All it means is if you subdivide it and it becomes less than 10 acres, you will pay taxes for 7 years on the difference between what the valuation was as an agricultural land versus what it would be as non-agricultural lands. And actually, for most people, that's not a huge penalty. The ASA similarly is a totally voluntary program. So you put your farm in an agricultural security program, you can also grow security program. Primarily what it does is protect some of the right farm owners that are strong in this stage, to prevent nuisance ordinances such as noise, running your combine related thing. The ag security area would be farmers protection. But other than that, it doesn't. None of that zoning, ASA, great. None of that guarantees that it be used in perpetuity for agriculture. But happy to try to answer the questions. Again, I'm not here to represent the commission. This is really. But I'm just going to tell you. I don't know if you have any comment, Jeannie? Yes.
So my name is Jean Kashi. I live at 2195 Winston Avenue in Upper Adams Township. I am a resident of this township. I hope the 3 minutes are ticking because you can hold me to that. I have every right to be here to make public comment. Every right. When this is reported tomorrow on social media, I want to use that phrase. So I like this idea. I like the idea of taking this out to the ballot to let the voters vote on it. I think it's incredibly fair. I think you've got to do it pretty quickly because there is tremendous pressure, not only in Upper Island Township, but throughout the county in terms of development, in terms of planning. And as Ed mentioned, and as the letter says, every survey I have seen as a county commissioner, I'm also a county commissioner, says, I don't want a warehouse, I don't want a data center, I don't want to pay for 911, and I want green space, I want recreation, I want to be able to get outside. Those things are so important to people, and we know that being able to get outside, to be able to have a nice view, to be able to enjoy the outdoors is so important to people's mental health. It is the social determinant of health. And having good social determinants of health save taxpayers money in the long run. It's incredibly important. It helps you get a good education. It helps you keep your act together. Right? It helps you to have a quality of life that is really important. Commissioner Filippo is gone. No, there he is. Thank you. I appreciate you being here tonight. Very much so. Ed, thank you so much. And they have said things in a much better way than I did. I fully support taking this to the ballot. I think it's really important. And if the answer is yes, or the answer is no, you live with it. Right? Okay, thank you. That's right, I'm short sleeves.
Yeah, I'm willing to try to field any questions that you might have specific about the county.
Thank you very much. Notice the last count has the plan, there were 111 responses from around.
Correct.
That is pretty good. Yes, you want to hit the whole message. Like the administration was going to be one of the priorities.
Correct. Correct. Any other questions from you commissioners? Thank you for your attention. We appreciate it.
We will open it up more to our own audience members. Yeah.
I'm reading the full. Revised 10/20/93 Drive. First question, meeting on the 22nd, if it happens, it'll be an evening meeting. You know, we're hearing all these secrets. What is the question? I don't know the answer to this.
I'm not really like this, I am, and I kind of asked this on Facebook. How does eminent domain fit in this? We preserve our land, we pay our, you know, all pay our taxes, stuff. Well, we all know the federal, the current administration of state and federal want these things. And not only these things, but these things, other things, like utilities.
So it's
Does it preserve?
School district, either has just committed them, tries to seize eminent domain on a conservation easement.
Yeah, real quick, when that all came about, there was so much political BS. The state passed legislation to strengthen those eminent domain rules and knock that out. Meaning that what the school district wanted to do is illegal, can't. And that strengthened the eminent domain law as it is now. Now, you know, on a preserved farm, if a utility company needs to take a half an acre to put a power line through or to cut off a piece of land to widen right of way on the highway, they can do that, but it's very small amounts, and that has to be approved by a number of people. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, did you have more? Yeah.
I don't know how to ask this. Yeah, I want land preservation, and I'm not 100% opposed to a earned income tax increase. I do have trouble with sharing fairly the amount, the taxes we pay, because I know that there are wealthy people in Upper Town who do not pay earned tax, and that bothers me. Not that they don't pay it, but that those who do pay it take on the responsibility of paying this 1%. And they'll benefit. And I know it's just a bit tax. I just want to make that statement.
It was the beginning of that.
Thank you.
I am for this. We've seen what's happening. Township, it's been 65 years. This township has grown drastically. It's like there's a piece of land, let's build something on it. We need to stop. Look what is happening. We're getting on, we're letting these builders come in. And these new developments, what the heck over there in Monroe. The gentleman who owns Fair was buying my homes. He's involved with this. First it was supposed to be homes. Now it's going to be, hopefully not, a data center. This can happen here. I mean, maybe not a data center, but it could be a huge warehouse. There's a lot of land. Land very close to Franklin. That is, what is it? Is it commercial? We don't know what's happening there. It's a joke. Is there going to be a Walmart there or what? So I think it's something that we really need to take into consideration because we are building this township. We're taking away land and we are letting people come in and build things that's unnecessary. And I'm willing to pay extra tax. If I have my peaceful area and I have to worry about tractor trailers and things like that coming in or traffic, I'm willing to pay the extra. So I'm just supportive of the
Michelle, could you take a few of the beer? Thanks, Steve.
Turns off the audio.
I didn't know really quickly. It's more like
And just.
but I can go on and tell you.
I mean, it seemed like everyone's getting problems. Thank you.
And what else? What else was supposed to be there? A little mini market? You know, that's still up in there, and that's what we're concerned about. I mean, what's going to go in there? And that's a lot of people.
Plans or I'm not Nothing's come to the township where I've not heard anything in the neighborhood about anything specific, but it's a candidate development.
There was at one point in time, because it was supposed to be a convention, a hotel convention center. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's one or two.
Yes, that's what we're concerned about. This is like that, we don't know the residents, they have it, it's already zoned commercial. We don't know what's going to go in there. So it's just, it's.
The other track, I think, Brent, speaking of the band's off track.
Yes.
You're 15, and it's on a steep slope, and it goes down to where the Yellow Bridge is, which is conservation area. I mean, it is probably the better track that should not be.
Right. Oh, it's time they were.
Something, an 80 town or something, and obviously, if you going through owners, having difficulty putting the project together, be a difficult site for them to work with.
That's what I'm just, like I said, I'm going to raise my tax, I don't care, as long as we have, let's keep the township the way it's in now. No more than that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Eric Reed, Beer Managers. A while ago when I was here, I had some questions about commercial building, and I was told that township would benefit from commercial in terms of income as opposed to residential, because typically, even though residents pay property tax or earn income tax, you look at the cost, especially for school, it's probably higher. I think it was Mr. told me that. So when I looked at that, that's right. You take a $500,000 home, and property tax would be about $6,000 for school tax. $100,000 salary, which is the median, would be $1,200 for income tax. There's about $8,000 going to schools. But if you have 10 homes, on average, there'll be 4 children at $21,000 per kid. You have a report of $1,200. So there's a problem. If we continue to allow developers to come in, buy land, and put in homes, even if we have a single home at 1829 Fisher Road, and you allow them to go from single home to a 19 townhome complex, you will incur more costs than what you will generate. It will be a burden on the township eventually. If, however, some of that cost gets set aside to land preservation, and you buy up the land that's being used otherwise for homes, you can prevent some of the overcrowded infrastructure that can no longer accommodate what this township used to be able to accommodate. And it would actually improve the quality of life for the residents. So even if you look at the financial picture, there is a financial benefit of a small tax increase to pay for land preservation to limit the congestion. Yes, there is a good amount of land in the agricultural security area, which is good as protection against limited domain, but not against the developer coming into line with the land and trying to do something with it. So if it is a necessary step to move towards preservation, but there's no guarantee. So if Upper Allen is not proactive in acquiring that land into land preservation, then they are at risk for developers coming in. And yes, it might be public money used for somebody private. But there are many examples of public money being used where there's no direct benefit to the resident. This is a quality of life benefit to the resident that a person has done that we would quite like to support. As far as urgency is concerned, with all of the activity around data centers, there's a lot of concern in general what happened to the township. And one might want to consider recognizing that and translating that into a referendum that ties into some of these concerns with lands coming into being converted and being at risk for data centers and others. So if the work can be done in a short period of time, let's be like a private organization along with the government. Let's not sit on it for a year, but develop it now, ask voters what they think, as Commissioner Boshi said, then accept them. Thank you.
Quite sure what you said, Eric, about the commercial development. There, I've seen an issue with commercial assessments. CVS, the road here, assessed at 1.7 million where it was. And then the 7-Eleven came in at 1.6 million. It's like a 3-to-1 variance between a new business coming in, established business. CVS has since appealed their assessment. It's down to 2.9, but it's still twice as much as the 7-Eleven. And then another one that caught my eye is the money push. Now I get a little over, I think, $740,000. There's the little aqueduct car wash across the street. Is it $7,000? So it's just out of fairness and like out of date information. Look at the map, or there's like mistakes where with an acreage. It's something, and we actually recently have a school district, it's Longwell, and it's an issue there now. I know, I guess, Cumberland Valley, looking at some Wegmans, some shopping centers, but it really has to be looked at because it's not fair. I was hoping, I know you do a lot of data, Eric, and like even if it's $50, or if you make $50, you make $50,000, you're earning that'd be $50. 100,000 a year is $100, but just the increase this year alone in the Canonsburg School District is going to be 4.3% increase. I think you mentioned the paying is what, $6,000 or something. You're going to go $240 just this year. I mean, the $50 figure on your income, that's pretty consistent. Maybe you find a way to pay it, like you suggested, that sometimes we're paying it. It seems pretty skewed toward if we could put some money toward land preservation. I mean, ultimately, it's our choice. We only have one. It just seems like something that the voters, I think they're intelligent, they would carefully consider what is 50. How important is that to you versus the congestion? And seeing view or farm field turn into something else. People being like, what's possible, put it on. But we need the boards that Jay's here, getting back your response back on this contract. But anyway, more comments? Anybody? Okay.
I would move to authorize the staff to schedule advertise a public forum regarding your information. I would move to authorize staff to schedule and advertise a public forum regarding land preservation for June 22nd.
Those in favor?
Aye.
We'll have a public forum. I believe, as I know, it applies. Well, or do we do that separately? I believe that to explain their data, answer questions, and so forth. But it's up, I guess, to Josh.
Yeah, if you authorize, we need to enter negotiations with actual plans within this scope of the original contract to try to secure their attendance at June 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Thank you, everybody. I find great and productive discussion. As a board, have a lot of information. We help some back because the whole idea of the consultant was they're going to present fair, objective information. So we can still get there. But thank you. Next, we have authorization to change BOC meeting date from August the 5th to August the 3rd. Maybe should we table that? We talked before about we weren't ready to do that for people. Right, we could wait. Yeah, if the time has changed, people want to hear something.
Yeah.
We don't.
You can always reschedule somebody if that.
I can pass over to read the table.
You don't have to do it.
Good for you. So they figured out. All right, all right. Pass over now. That is a matter of update and discussion.
Address for it. I have looked into a process under the municipalities planning code, and it's called a curative amendment. And this is the process by law where if up around the township, currently does not have a data center defined in their zoning ordinance, you can pass a resolution to declare that your ordinance is substantially invalid because of the lack of that definition. And then you can pass a second resolution explaining why why the ordinance is substantially invalid. If you pass both of those resolutions, you then have a moratorium-like effect where the ability of someone to build a data center in one indicated period before township passes a data center ordinance is very limited. And so I have prepared resolutions for your consideration tonight. My apologies, they just finalized today, so they were not on the agenda. However, if you desire to enact those resolutions tonight after deliberation, discussion, deliberation, you can amend your agenda you can amend your agenda to add this to the agenda, and then we can pass these resolutions. I do have copies of the resolutions that can be displayed on the screen. And so my recommendation would be that you amend your agenda to allow adoption of these resolutions, and then to adopt each of these resolutions. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
I move that we amend our agenda to include positive consideration.
The reason for the amendment has to be it has to be discussed in motion, and there is, I did in a confidential legal memo to provide, language for
The text that I had moved to amend the agenda for Upper Allen Word or June 17th to add consideration of adoption or resolutions to initiate a curative amendment process to amend zoning ordinance to provide for lawful regulation of data center uses throughout the township. Reason for the amendment of agenda is the township solicitor providing proposed resolutions to the Board of Commissioners less than 24 hours prior to the meeting.
Second.
Yeah, there needs to be a second, then you should allow public comment.
Mr. Martin, should we have to resolve that?
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
My motion said the same thing, but is that you prefer?
Because, yes, I'm trying to be very specific that you have to put them.
What I'm going to draw a line.
Yeah.
Do that. Bill, I think you said.
Well, I second the withdrawal. Yes, second.
you don't have to read it again or
No,
anything.
you just say all those in favor.
We need a vote, right?
We're not going to necessarily public comment.
So is there a second to Karen's motion?
Second.
And then you can allow public comment before.
Any public comment? Yeah.
I just have to say this. If I had not read this, I would not be voting on it. I would want to make sure that I read it before I was going to vote on it. It would be uncomfortable.
Those resolutions prior should be.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm glad you did it. I mean, the technology, the issue is moving so much.
Okay, the reason I mentioned it, is that was unclear to me from your comments, that they had these in advance. In fact, what I heard was that you put them, that they were put out today. Which led me to believe that they hadn't seen them. So I'm glad you cleared that up for me.
I provided it early.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Who voted Karen? We don't vote on Karen's motion, so.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I move the matter of the 26th, declare the underground facility ordinance technically invalid in part with respect to data center use to invoke the protection of section 609.2 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code and to initiate a curative amendment process to provide for lawful regulation of data center use in that Broward County.
Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I move to enact resolution number 1127, set forth specific findings of substantive invalidity of the grant. Pursuant to section 6.2 the NBC with regard to regulating the data center.
Second. Public comment on this?
Aye.
Were we gonna say anything, we've already, the ordinance, that's today, the public improvement committee meeting, Michelle is handling that, for us. Very thorough, comprehensive, we're making substantial progress. So next we have consideration of grant applications, we have 3 different grant applications.
It'll be a total of 4.
Or
Yes. So the first one for consideration is for the Multimodal Transportation Fund through DCED. This is taking the 2027 roadway improvement plan and taking large portions and dividing it up into 3 different applications, which are highlighted in black on there in bold. Those are the 3 different areas that I would like to apply to a grant for to see if we can get approved to assist us in funding and reducing our costs in the 2027 roadway improvement budget. This would be, this grant program closes July 31st, and I would come back to you before then for a resolution, 3 different resolutions for each project.
But all them separately or?
I just need the approval to apply for at least for this these 3. And then the second, well, I guess the 4th one is for the fire department to words today for staffing. Our program where we give the incentive program. There's a federal program that would reimburse us year 1 and 2 up to 75%, and year 3 up to 35%. So we would be able to incentivize our fire department for longer. That is number 4. So 1, 2, and 3 are MTF, and number 4 is the SAFER federal grant through FEMA. There is another one listed on the agenda, which we're going to skip, and I'll come back to you next month for that one. That program does not open until September, so it would be a little ahead of time to bring that up now.
If you want a motion, I would move you.
Yes, useful language of the recommendation.
So you said there's 4 grants.
It'll be a total of 4 grants.
And I'm applying 4 grants for MTF and FEMA and for state for grants.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
And about 1,000.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you, Michael.
Couple miles up.
The
That wasn't my item.
Oh, it's okay.
And they usually listed at her work. I have it in front of you.
Your Avery Holmes and drilled. So. Did that come forward?
Yes.
That we authorize the following staff to serve as property maintenance enforcement officers. They use their sheer Avery Holmes and drilled.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have Park and Recreation. Have any of the board discussion with the public department, like the parks, meeting next week?
Make recommendation for Generations Park. I would like to see an area dedicated to our veterans, rooms. Anthony Township has a park. I think we're talking about generations. Why can't we do something like that? Maybe make an area that residents, if they want to purchase a park bench with their family member, Bradley Township family member name, 5 months, whatever, maybe a little sprinkle or something. But I think they're going to call it Generations Park. Let's try to dedicate an area to our veterans. Have celebrations there.
I think that's a good suggestion, Robin. We talked informally already about what we should do with Veterans Park. We do have the park over in Wendell, but I think to have a specific Veterans Park would be wonderful. And I think we made a good point if we can figure out generations that sound like
Just an area like they want to make their event. It's beautiful. Everybody ever went there. But it is very nice, and it's just when you walk in, you get to have the people appreciate it. And
Usually by a flag.
yeah, there is a flag there, and at the one area, I don't even know when it's the very beginning, but I think they also have made some kind of, I don't know what you call it, tank or whatever. But I think if we did something like that, we have Boy Scouts, we could have, dedication is there. And I just, well, really, Veterans Day, whatever. But it's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Jack Williams again. So, yeah, good. Hi, Sean, I was board with the Randy said. I was largely involved as director at Silver Spring. It's the Taggart Veterans Memorial. I don't think we need to do an entire memorial. My point was really, there are plenty of veterans here in our township. You got a committee together. They can also fundraise, they can give advice, get something designed for whatever part of the generation. I think it's a wonderful idea, because it's peaceful and you can find a glade or whatever, but I think it's a tremendous idea and I thank her for bringing that up. But Nancy Filippo was very active in that and, again, has resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Weather update.
There was an opinion by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court 2 days ago involving steel games. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court determined that under current laws, steel games are not lawful. They are considered slot machines. The Supreme Court stated their ruling for 120 days, I believe, until October 13th, 2026, in which law enforcement may not initiate any type of adverse action against operators of skill machines. That's to give the General Assembly time to possibly reconsider a law. The Supreme Court, it's not the Supreme Court's case, it's not the Supreme Court's role to say something is illegal or not. That's for the General Assembly to decide. What the Supreme Court was saying is the way the law is currently drafted, skill games are not lawful in Pennsylvania. They're the same. They should be regulated the same as slot machines. That's probably going to be reconsidered by the General Assembly in the next 120 days. But bringing this to your attention, you may hear about this or may wonder what law enforcement is doing. Law enforcement's not allowed to do anything about this for the next 120 days.
Fiscal advisory.
Their next meeting is July 7th at 12 o'clock.
I don't believe the other executives.
Only, well, if you would like to discuss the cash law legislation, we can do that tonight, and we can do that at a later date.
I'll do that next later.
Mr. President, I move we adjourn. Second.
Are you?